Modeling for advantage. This is a rule that has such a weighted history behind it that it sounds like someone spits after they say it just to get the bad taste out of their mouth. I have a Facebook account now. You can follow me on Facebook. I think that's linked in the description. And I have seen someone post some cool Seraphim with Battle Sister body, so it's Seraphim on foot, and they got dogpiled by comments about modeling for advantage. And yeah, that is okay when playing with a child, but not at a tournament. I can only hope the 120 heart reactions outweigh the weird comments. Modeling for advantage is a scale. At the far, let's say, left of the screen, convert everything, change it up, make a John Blanche-inspired army. Make the model bigger, give it flame jets, no problem. But some people, when making their models, will take it to the extreme and deliberately model their units to give an obvious rules advantage. Sticking a big bit of card to the side of a rhino so it blocks line of sight to tanks behind. Modeling skimmers with their nose pointed up so that they fit behind a terrain piece that they otherwise wouldn't. That is deliberate and overt in the advantage. At the far right of the screen end, you must use the current base, you must use the Games Workshop model, and you must build it as posed on the box. Don't want to put on an easily snappable antenna? That's modeling for advantage. Don't want to use the curved flight stand because the Inceptors and Seraphim are on that and that always breaks? Well, if you don't use that, you're modeling for advantage. Any deviation that could give you a potential advantage, maybe they don't know what the advantage is, but you must have deviated from the box art for a reason. Anything that is different is cheating with a capital C. I'm a little bit to the left. Don't specifically set out to make weird things that are obvious where they give you an advantage, like changing the height of a flight stand to stop models fighting your flyer, but I massively encourage you to convert and personalize your army regardless of any very minor advantages or disadvantages you get under whatever the current rule system is that is going to change in 3 years, if not 3 months. Be practical within the limits of the model. If the flying stand snaps, glue your models to the base. If a model falls over all the time, put it on a bigger base. If Warhammer is too expensive, and it is, use models from other game systems. Use Wargame Atlantic models. Use Doom the board game models for demon princes and any other demons. Games Workshop doesn't like you using models from other manufacturers for obvious reasons. These are models, but also gaming pieces. These are gaming pieces, but also models. One of those statements will resonate with you more than the other. It's like brutal and cunning Gork and Mork. But modeling for advantage is not a Games Workshop rule. They don't list the height and the width that a model should be anywhere. They don't mention it in the codex, in the core rules, in expansions, or in tournament packs. Modeling for advantage doesn't come up. They want you to change your models, use other Games Workshop models to make cool conversions and make awesome models that you play with, and in doing so, show off another part of the hobby which entices other people in. That is in the Tournament Companion, for tournaments. And at tournaments not run by Games Workshop, run wherever, that have a no modeling for advantage rule, they're about as enforced as a school or office's no bullying policy. The rule is there to say it is a rule, to discourage people from doing it without effort. It is incredibly, incredibly rare for there to be any repercussions because to model for advantage, there has to be an advantage you can gain. It can't be something that comes up in an incredibly rare situation because then you have, like, what a 1% average over 5 games, the odds of that coming up are very low. Especially when you're on the same kind of boards against the same kind of players. So the advantage has to be obvious, or you won't reliably get an advantage, and then it can be called out and ignored. Big Walker that has a laser gun pointed at the sky to see all the models on the table from it? Say you can't do that. You can't measure line of sight from the big laser. At tournaments, there have been no penalties, no exclusions, no docked victory points. Just pretend that model is on a 40mm base. Here's a circle of paper because it's not on the current base size. Ignore the massive gun on the lone operative if it becomes a problem, and that's it. Oh, you glued on some card to your rhino? Well, let's just pretend you didn't glue the card onto the rhino and use the proportions of the rhino. People have heard horror stories of banishments from events and it scares them. And it shouldn't. Games Workshop doesn't have that rule. Their rule is, don't use non-Games Workshop parts or non-Games Workshop models at Games Workshop tournaments. Other events have their own rules, but convert your models. Tournaments are already abstract. That pile of dominoes is a 6-inch high wall that totally blocks line of sight. Windows and doors don't exist on tournament tables. You see a window, oh, you're wrong, it's not there actually, ooh. If you want exact silhouettes of models, play Corvus Belli's Infinity. It has preset card shapes for each model that you hold up to the model to draw line of sight to. You don't need to add that to 40k. It's not in 40k, it's in Infinity. These are separate game systems run by different companies. So at the Dallas Open, big Games Workshop tournament, Jeffrey Kolodner had a unique canoness with a massive flag. His Calidus Assassin, which isn't posed on a rock with flowing hair, it is much lower to the ground, and his Paragon Warsuits have cat-eared sisters. This is a grand tournament, he was on course to win, so naturally I was shocked when he was thrown out and banned for modelling for advantage. Except that didn't happen. Not at all. He was not kicked out, he was not accused of modelling for advantage, because a conversion is not modelling for advantage, even if you totally change the height of the model. Maybe because his opponent in Game 6, Robin Roberts, had Necromunda models as proxies for his Benefactus and his Neophytes. Naturally, I took interest in this game because its battle sisters against Genestealer Cult. But this is perhaps my most important point. At top Games Workshop supervised Warhammer tournaments, the top players, or some of the top players of their faction, have proxies and conversions way out of the official model's proportions, and it is not modelling for advantage. Modelling for advantage is a myth. It's based on the weirdest cases of cheating recorded on the internet, and people wanted to have some sort of rule to stop the cheaters from doing it again. Whenever it is mentioned, the hypothetical cases come out, and we see where people are on the spectrum. The spectrum, I said at the bottom, left to right, how you feel about modelling for advantage, that spectrum. Are you scrolling through the comments now? Yeah, you are. Leave a nice one. Base sizes were introduced in the tournament companion for tournament organisers at Games Workshop events to have a standardised guide. It doesn't say, models not on these bases are assumed to be destroyed before the game starts. It doesn't say, dock 10 victory points from a player that used 25mm for their Voidsman, because that's what the Voidsman at Arms models came on, but that's not what's in the tournament companion pack. It doesn't say that players not following the guide are modelling for advantage and should be penalised or banned. The base size has the most gentle, casual language, which is doing its best to make sure the guide isn't taken as a stick to beat people with. So stop using it as a stick to beat people with. It says tournaments bring together people from all over the world to enjoy a shared hobby, to play the game we love using armies we have spent many hours building and painting. Many players enjoy converting and customizing their models to make them unique and personal to them, and we actively encourage this. One of the key goals of a tournament is to provide a shared fair play experience for all while celebrating the hobby. To support tournament organisers to achieve this, this document gathers a list of appropriate bases for all players to check. This information is not a requirement for all games of Warhammer 40,000, but is intended to avoid any uncertainty which may arise in matched play settings. And it says appropriate bases, not compulsory or necessary, what is suitable. And that is always up to tournament organisers. And I haven't met one yet who wanted to organise ways to keep people out of their tournament. It's harder when you consider tanks. Tanks get new models. They are not updates. You won't open your cupboard to gaze upon your 2nd edition Immolator to see that it is transformed into a 9th edition Immolator model. But the rules measure from the hull. They have to account for different generations of the tanks, and consider spikes, and consider antenna. If you add one or don't add one, that changes how high the model is. Is not putting the hedge cutter spikes on the model modelling for advantage, or is choosing to glue them on modelling for advantage? Which is it? So you mentioned it before the game. Say, I think it's really silly that I can shoot from this antenna, so pretend it isn't there. Then it isn't a problem. Games Workshop is not going to cover this as one of their rules. It is assumed that there are humans who talk to one another. There isn't a hobby section of the current 40k rules that explains the hobby side. Nothing about converting, kit bashing. The most important rule is not in the core rules of 10th edition, and modelling for advantage is at most an unwritten rule, and at least it isn't a rule in any rulebook that you can point to anywhere. You can claim it's a rule, you can point at a couple of lines in a tournament pack from an event you went to 2 tournaments ago, but it's not in any 40k publications. It is a problem in gameplay, very, very rarely, and it will be really obvious when it is. The bigger problem modelling for advantage has on the community is the fear of this very minor quirk of using miniatures in a miniature game. When people react to the possibility of it happening with anger, then you are making it a problem. If someone has 3 shining spears and one of them has their lance vertical and another lance is horizontal, is that modelling for advantage in part? Is it a disadvantage to have a vertical lance as line of sight can be drawn to it and the unit can be shot until the lance shoots, and now the claim is that you are modelling for advantage on one model? Tournaments don't do hills these days. You will be behind a ruin and can't be targeted because ruins block line of sight, or the unit is not behind a ruin and can be shot. Oh, but what about the horizontal lance that sticks out from behind a ruin? Is that modelling for advantage or disadvantage? Do you see how this can quickly be silly and just contentious fighting? Did you paint your models really well and your opponent likes them and wants to keep looking at them so they don't shoot that unit because dead models go into a closed box? Have you modelled for advantage now? Am I being silly? Me? The animated vampire? This is not a topic I think should be taken seriously. Tau broadside battlesuits have legs that can easily be posed kneeling or standing. Maybe some people's ideal hobby involves snapping the legs and breaking the knees of the XV88 battlesuits, and after that cathartic moment, turning to their Space Marine army and posing all the models to crouch or lie down. They can't be shot behind a 3-inch high stone wall with no gaps. They can't shoot either. If there are no low walls of that dimension and only 5-inch high walls, or there are fences and ruins with gaps in them, that was a lot of time spent on a pointless endeavour if you were exhausting yourself to try and get an advantage. Time you could have spent getting better at the game or painting more models. So you really only pose them crouching because you wish that you got Imperial Guard for Christmas and then you can shout front rank fire, second rank fire. That is the sort of person that converts their models like that. Let them. If that exact 3-inch high stone wall with no gaps turned up on an objective and then the models can't be shot because the models are on the ground, we have a joke about it and then we stop being silly because of course they would be visible. Don't get enraged by the hypotheticals. You can deal with these situations if they come up. Modelling for advantage is not the issue people think it is. And I do take issue with responses to cool conversions or modelling hacks that say, modelling for advantage, as their main comment, or add, I don't know where you live, but I need you to know I will never play a game of 40k with you. That is the tournament toxicity, and it is nothing to do with what happens at tournaments. When people get into a war game, I want them to see a community that is very accepting of conversions and tactical rocks and dioramas, not limited to when Games Workshop does it with the Hospitaller. If someone shows off a cool conversion or wants to know community opinion on something, if it sounds cool, say it looks cool. If it looks good, tell them. If you put your Keeper of Secrets that you got in 3rd edition on the table, the usual reaction is, cool model, haven't seen one like that before, or haven't seen one like that in a while. Maybe there's a comment about base size, as there is a 40k base size guide that maybe you should ignore, but there is not a height guide or a model dimension guide because those are not rules requirements. Modeling for advantage is not a rule. But don't we need rules like modeling for advantage to keep bad actors out? No. When modeling for advantage has such a wide spectrum it could apply to, you are overwhelming and badly affecting converters, people with older models, second-hand collectors, far more than exploiters who will keep trying to get around whatever wording you apply to modeling for advantage. Don't cheat is a better rule, and we leave that to the tournament organisers on the day to enforce. Point at the Wraith Lord that has entered a limbo contest to see if a tournament organiser cares to say it's fine or count it as being 1 inch taller. With or without a no modelling for advantage rule, it will always come down to the tournament organisers you have and how good they are at identifying bad actors from creative gamers. Is that a jazz hand gene stealer, or was there a specific rule that the player identified and by changing their model to apply under a different rule, there is an advantage? Changing a flying stand's height to stop models 5 inches under the wings from attacking it, for example, would be cheating. If you tried to enforce that it is more than 5 inches off the table. In casual games, you can't enforce it aside from, if you're super weird, I won't play with you. As soon as a tournament organizer puts no modeling for advantage in their tournament companion or tournament rules, all you will get is a dozen messages from concerned people sending you photos of their conversions asking, is this okay or should I drop out because my captain has an axe instead of a sword? Don't make a thing about modeling for advantage. Don't even mention it. Not in preparation for events, not online, not when you're shown a conversion, and especially not when you're shown a conversion by a starry-eyed newbie. Don't be an asshole about their model on the assumption they will one day meet an asshole who will be horrid about their model and claim they're modeling for advantage. You are making an attempt to get the converter to cater to the potential future taste of an asshole. I can word that better. Hang on. You are attempting to get the converter to cater to the potential tastes of a future asshole. That sounds better. That sounds better. Support one another. And thank you to the people who support me with money through Ko-fi, which anyone can do. I talked about modeling for advantage a few weeks ago in my conversation with Paul. We talked a lot about what it's like to actually go to a tournament and what people are like at these events. That's a video on screen for you to click on. Thank you for watching. I hope you have a wonderful sleep tonight and then have a great day of 40k.